Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and it's time once again for another entry into my Batman movie review series. This time I am tackling the first of the Christopher Nolan movies. This is, of course, Batman Begins from 2005, and this is a movie that I have to give you full disclosure on. This is my favorite of the Batman films that I've watched so far. It's also the one that I've seen the most in the theater. I've also seen it more times at home than any of the other Batman films, and I have to say it gets better and better every time I watch it. I just got done watching it for what I think is the 6th time, and it was like discovering just a whole bunch of different new stuff about it that I really hadn't remembered from watching it before, and it's been a few years since I've seen it last. If you've watched the previous entries in this Batman movie review series, you know that I'm reviewing all of the Batman movies from 1989 up to The Dark Knight, which came out in 2008. And there's only one movie after Batman Begins, and that is The Dark Knight, and of course then Dark Knight Rises, which is 2012. Obviously, you know that. This is the first of the movies directed by Christopher Nolan. It was written by Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer. The story was done by Mr. Goyer as well. And this is a complete reinvention of the character, hence the title Batman Begins. Everything that came before from both Joel Schumacher and Tim Burton is tossed out the window, and we start from scratch. And much like Joel Schumacher kind of announced visually in the first 10 minutes of both Batman Forever and Batman and Robin that he's taking a completely different path than what has come before, the same thing happens in Batman Begins, where we find Bruce Wayne in, of all places, a Chinese prison. And it forces you to rethink everything you know about Bruce Wayne and the Batman character. And then the movie kind of, through the use of flashbacks, a retelling of the origin story, and the introduction of a character called Henry Ducard, who is played by Liam Neeson, we see how the young Bruce Wayne transforms into the character eventually known as the Batman. And this is a much more psychological approach to the character than the previous films. This does a great job. It doesn't quite fully explore, or I shouldn't say it doesn't fully explore, but it more fully explores the psychological aspects of the Batman character. You know, the symbols and perception and deception and things that can be used as a weapon against crime, the examination and sort of understanding of the criminal mind that is required to fight crime. And all of that comes through this use of flashbacks that I was talking about, where Bruce Wayne is trained by Henry Ducard to become something more than just a man in a costume. He has to get the mind ready to do this. And this is something that some of the other Batman films have touched on but never really delved into to the extent that Batman Begins does. And I think that really is the key to its success, along with the fantastic performance of Christian Bale as both Bruce Wayne and Batman, and of course the fantastic, don't want to overuse that word, but it's true, the fantastic supporting cast that we have in this film, which is, of course, has Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, who I've mentioned, Morgan Freeman, Gary Oldman, Katie Holmes, Rutger Hauer, Tom Wilkinson, and Cillian Murphy. All of them, with maybe I could quibble a bit on Katie Holmes. She's probably the weak link in this chain, but she's still pretty damn good as Rachel Dawes, a member of the DA's office who sort of becomes a very vital part in Batman's plans to start unraveling the lock that the criminals have on Gotham City. And I'm really not delving into the plot much because I really want you to, if you've not seen this movie, and if you haven't seen this movie, just stop the video right now, go out, rent it, buy it, whatever you have to do, get it and watch it. And just really enjoy how Batman has really deserved to be depicted on the screen since they started making motion pictures. I really can't find anything majorly wrong with Batman Begins, and that's such a relief after watching and rewatching the previous 4 Batman films, all of which had some flaw or another. Because this movie is so rooted in realism, where the technology that Batman uses and the gadgets that he uses aren't ridiculous and over the top. The character is, like I said, rooted in the psychology, and his creation, his origin, all of that stuff is just rooted in realism. So when the movie does sort of approach comic book insanity towards the end, you're kind of okay with it, because you haven't been overdosed on ridiculous, over-the-top action scenes and unbelievable action sequences and just all sorts of just mind-numbing stuff that is pretty much how you could describe Batman and Robin, and to a slightly lesser extent Batman Forever. Batman Begins simply is, up to now, the best Batman movie that had been released up to 2005. I'm not comparing it to The Dark Knight yet. Of course, I haven't seen The Dark Knight Rises yet, but this is, as of 2005, the best Batman movie going. So I don't want to gush about the movie for the rest of the video, so I'm just going to say this is the one to watch of all of the movies I've reviewed so far. If you want to start with a Batman film, this is the one to start with. And undoubtedly, I'm probably going to be saying a lot of similar things about The Dark Knight Rises, or, well, maybe The Dark Knight Rises, but specifically The Dark Knight, which I have, I'm kind of overdue in watching again, so I can't wait to watch it. But the one thing that is also important about this movie, and then I'll shut up, is the fact that even though it's dark and it's psychological and it's very serious, there's still humor in it, and it's much needed humor because of the rather heavy tone of the film, but it is well done. Not only from Christian Bale, but from Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman as well. And it's just enough to keep the movie from getting too sourpussed, I guess. And it's just as everything is in this movie, it's just really well done. This film builds a great foundation for the rest of the franchise, even though it was envisioned as a trilogy and nothing more than that. This definitely sets the tone and makes you excited for the next movie, which is, of course, The Dark Knight. And I'll be reviewing that very soon, just because I really want to get into it. And I'm so excited after watching Batman Begins, because I was thinking earlier today that there aren't a lot of movies this summer that I'm really excited about. And I remember sitting in the theater watching Batman Begins and going, wow, this is a great movie. This is what summer movie going should be. And then I was thinking today, gee, there aren't a lot of movies coming out this summer that I'm interested in. Boy, I'm really damn glad Dark Knight Rises is coming out this summer, because I'm really hoping that it can live up to the precedent set by Batman Begins and, of course, The Dark Knight. But I won't get into The Dark Knight just yet. So if I had to rate this film, I would give it a 9.5 out of 10. The only reason I'm not giving it a full 10 out of 10 is because I want to reserve that for the movie that I think is just slightly better, The Dark Knight. But we'll see if I still feel that way after watching it in a much more recent setting. So there you go. That's my review of Batman Begins. And as always, feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Feel free to watch the other movie reviews on the site, of course, the other Batman reviews as well. And I hope you check out the rest of the channel. So thanks for watching, and take it easy.